The AX52 is the newest rifle in Warframe, and if you like crit, then this is gonna be your new best friend. Absolutely insane performance. So, in today's Warframe guide, I'm gonna tell you everything you need to know about it, how it works, what makes it so special, and of course, we have builds. Big shoutouts to all generous channel members who helped me keep the lights on, and now, let's jump right into it. Alright, now, first things first, what even is the AX52, how does it work, and what is so special about it? The AX52, just like the name might already suggest, is a very obviously AK-47 themed rifle. It's fully automatic, 40-round magazine, manageable recoil. All in all, this is pretty much the definition of standard stuff. When we're looking at the stats, we have a healthy crit chance of 26% with a 2.4x multiplier, that is slightly above average, so all in all, pretty good crit stats. However, the status chance of 18%, while not being terrible, at a fire rate of just 10 rounds per second, this is on the lower side of the spectrum, and the AX52 is definitely not meant to be a big status spreader. In terms of damage, it does purely puncture, 40 of that, which makes me actually kinda happy to see that there is no impact damage, because the last thing you would want on this gun is impact procs making the enemy stagger around, and there's a very special reason why, especially for this gun, you don't want the enemies to stagger. See, while all the stats and the performance looks like an average mid-tier assault rifle, nothing special, the AX52 has two special effects. Firstly, when you fire this thing from the hip, you get 60% ammo efficiency. What does that mean? Pretty simple. 60% ammo efficiency means whenever you fire a shot, there is a 60% chance of this shot actually not consuming any ammo. In other words, if you shoot the AX52 from the hip, your 40-round magazine is gonna last quite a bit longer, as you also see in the background. That is definitely already nice, but the real kicker with this one is the second effect, and that is that if you deal aimed headshots, those headshots get a 400% crit chance bonus. Yes, that's right, plus 400% crit chance when you aim and get a headshot. Just to be clear, this stacks additive with any crit chance mods that you put on the weapon, so it's kinda like you have 2 times critical delay modded onto your weapon. If you ask me, this crit bonus is absolutely crazy, and especially for rifle enjoyers and those players who like to play a bit more into headshots, who enjoy a more marksman type of playstyle, the AX52 is definitely worth considering. But just to make one thing clear, even though it does have the ammo efficiency on hipfire, I personally think if you intend to use this one as a hip-firing gun, then better skip it, because there's like a gajillion other weapons in the game that perform much, much better when fired from the hip. But now, before we jump into the builds, I would greatly appreciate it if you could maybe drop a like, because it helps big time with the YouTube algorithm, so thank you so much for your support. And now, let's take a look at how to mod the darn thing, shall we? Now, since we only have one rifle to talk about in this video, I thought I want to give you multiple builds, because surprisingly, the AX52 does offer quite the build variety. So let's jump into it, starting out with the first build, which focuses on direct damage. With this one, every single bullet you fire, especially if it hits the head, will hit like an absolute truck. The base damage here will come from our primary weapon Arcane, which in this case would be Primary Deadhead, of course, because it not only gives you up to 360% more base damage, but also an additional damage bonus on headshots, which nicely contributes to the playstyle of the AX52. Then we go with all 3 galvanized mods: Galvanized Chamber for more multi-shot, Galvanized Aptitude for more status chance and even more damage, and finally Galvanized Scope is going to be our crit chance mod, because it not only gives us crit chance, but also an additional crit chance bonus if we score headshot kills, which of course with the AX52 is going to be our goal. Then I did something relatively unconventional and doubled down into crit damage with Vital Sense and Bladed Rounds, because if you ask me, such a crit heavy weapon actually benefits from doubling down into crit damage too. Given whichever enemy faction you're up against, you use 2 mod slots for whichever element you need. In my case, I went for Corrosive with Infected Clip and Stormbringer against Grenier, and the final mod slot is relatively flexible. I personally went for a Prime Faction mod because, you know, faction damage is cool, but if you don't like it, you could use something else here as well. This build is definitely really nice, but if you ask me, it's not the best performance-wise. That title would go to our next one, and that is the Hunter Munitions build. See, we all know and love Hunter Munitions. What the mod does is, whenever you deal a critical hit, you have a 30% chance that this hit will also inflict a bleed status effect, which is really cool because bleed not only deals tons of damage over time, but also fully ignores enemy armor, so it's the perfect match against heavily armored high-level enemies. In order to get the most out of Hunter munitions on this gun, we need to get our base damage not from Primary Deadhead like before, but Primary Merciless, because Primary Deadhead only triggers if you do a direct hit headshot kill against the enemy, and since most damage here will come from the bleed ticks, it won't trigger, therefore Primary Merciless is the better option. Then, similar to the other build, we go for all 3 galvanized mods, Vital Sense and Bladed rounds for the crit damage. However, here, the faction damage mod is absolutely necessary because when you go for damage over time, faction damage double dips with that and gives you even crazier numbers. That's why I wouldn't skip it here. And the final mod slot goes to Rifle Elementalist because this one will enhance the bleed damage even further, making the enemies basically disintegrate after you only get 1 or 2 slashes in. Very crazy build. However, while the bleed build is definitely nice, there is a third, very deadly one, and that would be a build focused on the new revamped blast effect. As I also said in my Elements video, the new blast status effect makes it that whenever you kill an enemy with blast, that enemy will explode in an AoE and deal multiple times the damage that you dealt to them to all the enemies around them, allowing you to basically clear dozens of enemies in just one big bada boom. This is, by the way, also what you saw in the intro of the video. Now, for this build, we again go for Primary Deadhead because we go for headshots again. Again, all 3 galvanized mods, a faction damage mod, Rifle Elementalist because this one also increases the damage of the explosion, Vital Sense for the crit damage, and the final 2 mod slots are being filled with Rime rounds and Thermite rounds, which gives you, of course, blast, but also tons more status chance, which is nice because we do want to inflict the blast effects a bit more often. Now, with this exact build right here, you can use this blast playstyle with the AX52 on any Warframe you desire. However, there are some Warframes which synergize extremely well with specifically this build, making it even deadlier, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute right here. But for now, please just keep this build in mind as we talk about the budget build first, and then we jump into the crazy synergies that this blast build here allows. So yeah, budget build. This would be it, nothing special, Serration Split Chamber, Point Strike, Vital Sense, the 4 standard mods for pretty much any rifle out there, combined with Vigilante armaments for even more multi-shot, and then I went for Corrosive Heat, but you could go for whichever other elemental combination you like. Definitely not the most potent build in the universe, but given the fact that the AX52 is such a strong rifle already, you will get quite some nice performance out of this. So much for the builds, but don't click away, the video isn't over yet. In fact, what we're going to talk about now is actually, in my opinion, the most interesting part of the video. As I just said, the AX52, more like most other weapons if you ask me, has crazy potential if you put it in the right setup with other elements that synergize nicely, and that is exactly what we're going to talk about right now. Starting out with one mod set that, if you ask me, is an absolute must when playing this weapon, and that will be, of course, the Vigilante mods. The Vigilante set has a set bonus that allows you to enhance crits to the next tier, the maximum chance here being 30% if you use all 6 mods in your loadout. What this means is that if you deal a yellow crit, with the Vigilante set, you have up to a 30% chance of that yellow crit actually becoming an orange one. And if you deal an orange crit, you have a chance of it being a red crit. If you deal a red crit, you have a chance of it being a red crit with an exclamation mark, and so on and so forth. Of course, with a weapon like the AX52 being so heavily played into crit, having the ability to take the already sky-high crit chance and enhancing that by another full tier, this is absolutely insane and leads to a big boost in damage. Now, you might be wondering, how should we incorporate all those Vigilante mods? Because honestly, most of them are pretty useless on our setup, and I totally get that, but the solution here is pretty simple. If you use a robotic companion, either a Hound or a Moa or a Sentinel, then all you really need to do is slap as many Vigilante mods as possible onto the companion weapon. Yes, the set bonus not only applies with the mods on your weapon or your Warframe, as long as they are somewhere in your loadout, you will get the set bonus even for your primary weapon. So yeah, just outsource as many Vigilante mods as possible and you're gonna be fine. Another item that I absolutely love with the AX52 would be Arcane Avenger, giving you plus 45% additional crit chance, but this one is much stronger than it looks because it is a flat bonus that is being added at the very end, giving you pretty much half an entire crit tier for free. So if you have that Arcane, definitely put it on your Warframe if you play this gun. And speaking of Warframes, let's also talk about which Warframes are the best ones to use the AX52, and this is also the part where we talk again about the blast build that I showed earlier, because there is some crazy synergy right here. First of all, one of my absolute favorite Warframes with this rifle would be Frost. I don't want to go too much into the details right here because I already made a dedicated Frost build not too long ago, but what it comes down to is Frost A can armor strip the entire room with his 4th ability, B freeze all the enemies around you with his 4th ability, so that's already very nice, enabling easier headshots against frozen enemies, and also you will deal tons more damage if they don't have armor. But what's even more is that when enemies are fully frozen, they take much more crit damage. This is not exclusive to Frost and comes from the cold status effect itself, but with Frost being able to fully freeze entire rooms, this naturally helps a lot too. The main thing here is actually his augment mod for his passive that gives you an additional 200% crit chance and 200% crit damage against all frozen enemies. Finally, and this is where we come back to the blast build, Frost also has an augment for his 1st ability, which infuses your weapon with cold damage. What this means is, if you were to use that blast build on Frost, you wouldn't have to use rhyme rounds because the cold damage comes from Frost himself, effectively freeing up one more mod slot to allow you to double down into more damage or use whatever you like here. And speaking about this whole blast synergy, let's now also talk about Gauss, because Gauss is incredibly great with this one right here. Gauss has the skill Thermal Sunder, and Thermal Sunder has an augment with which you can infuse your weapon with not only the cold but also the heat damage from Thermal Sunder, allowing you to basically get blast for free on your weapon, opening up not just one but both of the blast related mod slots. So if you go for Gauss, you have even more modding options for your AX52 than you would have with Frost. That's of course not all, because with Thermal Sunder, Gauss can also armor strip, just like Frost, and fully freeze all the enemies around you, allowing you to also get this crit damage bonus against frozen enemies. But when we're talking about crit weapons, we of course also have to talk about the crit king himself, Harrow. Just like Gauss and Frost, Harrow 2 is one of the best Warframes to use the AX52 because of what his skills provide. With his one, he can stun enemies and do so in a way that their heads are absolutely and clearly exposed, so it's easy to score those headshots that you need with this rifle. However, the main thing of his kit is of course his 4th ability, giving you up to 200% more crit chance whenever you score a headshot, and in contrast to, for example, Frost, this is a final 200% crit chance bonus, meaning when you score a headshot with Harrow, you get the absolute insanity, which is 2 entire critical tiers on top of whatever your hit would have done. It's absolute madness, as you also see in the background right here. And finally, another frame that we shouldn't forget to mention is naturally Saren, because she is just the undisputed best weapons platform in the entire game. She might not get all too crazy into the red crits like the other frames, but the sheer damage that she's able to put out is unparalleled and a ton of fun to play. If you haven't already, also make sure to check out my Saren guide that I uploaded recently. Now, so much about the Warframes, but we also urgently need to talk about the companions because there is even more synergy to be found here. First off, a very overlooked option in my opinion would be the Adarza Kavat, because it has a skill that gives you plus 60% more crit chance. Just like Arcane Avenger or Harrow's crit bonus, also the crit bonus from the Adarza Kavat is a flat bonus, giving you essentially another half crit tier for free. Then, of course, if you want to do viral priming to make the enemies more susceptible to your damage, the Panzerwölperpfeiler is the best option in the game, and if you want to prime literally any other element, then you gotta go for Diriga, because that's what he excels at. And finally, one very important thing to mention here, If you use a Sentinel as a companion, no matter which one, then definitely go for Duplex Bond plus the Verglass weapon and Shivering Contagion, because this will make it that you have multiple copies of your drone flying around, freezing enemies with that freeze ray from the Verglass, and that effect then also spreads to nearby enemies, basically giving you a very strong room freeze completely for free, which then again allows you to benefit from the crit damage bonus that comes with the frozen enemies. And finally, no matter which Warframe you want to play this rifle on, there are some helmet options that you can use regardless that are going to help big time with making your AX52 much stronger. First and foremost, of course, we have Roar and Eclipse, giving you more damage, although I would recommend Roar, especially when you're going for the Hunter Munitions / build, because as we all know, Roar is considered faction damage, meaning the bleed effects will benefit much more from it than from Eclipse. Then, of course, Grendel's Nourish being an absolute fan favorite, giving you viral onto the weapon for free and much more energy income. The next one is a more overlooked option, but I think it's extremely good on the AX52, and that would be Energized Munitions. What this skill does is, it gives you ammo efficiency, the same effect that you have when you hipfire the weapon, but of course, this one counts also when you aim it. And since your 40-round magazine is actually not too big and you're gonna find yourself reloading quite a bit, Energized Munitions can massively help with that. And finally, in my opinion, the best option, especially when you want to go for the blast build that I showcased earlier, would be Ensnare from Korra, because it not only neatly groups up all the enemies together in one big blob, but also, out of all the grouping abilities available in the helmet, this one is the only one that groups enemies in a way that their heads are relatively exposed so that you can actually get the headshots in, making Ensnare the objectively best grouping ability when playing the AX52. Okay. With all of that out of the way, you might be wondering, where do you actually get the darn thing from if you like what you saw so far? Well, this one is kinda spicy because at the point of making this video, the weapon is actually not available in the game at all. If you have it, then you got it from watching the TennoCon 2024 livestream on Twitch, and then it was distributed to the viewers as a Twitch drop. Other than that, there is currently no way to get the weapon, although I'm pretty sure that it being sort of the signature 1999 weapon, it will definitely come back into the game, either as something that Barrow Katir is going to have in his inventory in the upcoming weeks, or alternatively, I would suspect at the latest point, when the big 1999 update drops later this year, there is most likely going to be some way of farming this weapon in the update if Barrow doesn't have it. And if you also like the idea of deleting entire rooms with just one single melee attack, then watch this guide right here next and get the Glaive Prime as long as it's still available. Another big shout out to Needles V, Demon Lord Zell, Demon Emperor, Emperor Prime, Nos Linux Gaming, Lycan Shepherd, Turtlepeer, Pepperwolf, Ondakani02, Misfire DX, StreamJudge21, SignUpKing5000, Griplip Yixi, Mihawk HE, Yagis, and all other generous channel members for your continuous support. We see each other, hopefully in the next one, and until then, as always, good loot.